Longtime Knoxville sports talk show host Tony Basilio will be with us each and every Tuesday. We are excited about that. Let's bring him up first. And Tony, how you doing?
Doing great today. I'm back in Pennsylvania at my brother's house, so visiting
nice.
with family. So it's nice.
Oh, awesome. Listen, I thought when you and Watson got together a week ago, the conversation was incredible. So I'm going to do the smart thing. I'm going to let Watson lead this off, and then I'll clean up whatever messes he leaves behind. Watson, the floor is yours.
I felt it too, Watson. So I don't know if you felt it, but I felt it, man.
Oh, yeah. I had a blast. And Tony, thanks for coming back with us. And thanks for doing this this year. This is going to just be so much fun, and to watch Tennessee each week and where they improve, where they don't, if they get upset, did they not. We're going to have a blast with this. And my first thing that surprised me, Tony, was to see a team scrimmage on Sunday morning. Surprised me. I don't see that very often, especially in the South, where it's church times. Did that surprise you that they did that?
No question, but it's almost like nothing surprises you anymore about anything. But 25 years ago, if that would have happened, that would have been a major controversy, right?
Oh, geez.
Nobody would have batted an eye over it.
No, you're exactly right. We would have got killed if we did that 25 years ago. Absolutely. Yeah. I'd have had parents killing me.
Yes.
That you're not letting my son go to church and you're making him practice during church time. All of them may get hurt because you're taking on a pretty strong structure right there. So, no, that really surprised me, Tony, that they did that. And the other thing that excited me for Tennessee was that I saw where they went 1s-on-1s, 2s-on-2s, 3s-on-3s most of the day. And that's different in today's world. You might start out doing a little 1s-on-1s, but you end up some 2s. But it looked like they put their best against their best quite a bit of the time. I always thought my better teams, when that happened, the defense would maybe not win, but it was a 50-50 contest. And it looked like the Tennessee defense played pretty well and hung in there with the offense in this scrimmage.
I think that was kind of the point of what they did. And from the standpoint that you're talking about, when you look at what they did and how they did what they did, I was talking about this on my show. It's really easy, and you know this, coaches can shape the way a scrimmage goes by a few decisions. Now, I understand from talking to some people, offensively, what Tennessee decided to do was they decided that what they inevitably were going to do is not throw the long ball, work on the running game, work on the short passing game, keep the numbers down, and let the defense feel like they had a win in a 1v1 situation. Because, I'm of the belief that if they really wanted to, with the secondary woes that Tennessee has, if they really wanted to, they could probably do whatever they wanted to do to that defense.
Well, and I can remember being the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, and Gary Gibbs was the head coach, and Tom Hayes was the defensive coordinator, and they'd always gone 1s-on-1s, and the defense at Oklahoma had been really good. It's one of the reasons that I guess I was brought in. But when we had our first scrimmage that week, they were talking about it, and I said, guys, I don't think it's smart to put our one offense against our one defense the whole day. Right now, you need some confidence built on the offensive side of the ball. And Cale Gundy was my quarterback at that point. And we didn't. And what ended up happening in that scrimmage, Tony, the second team offense got the first team defense pretty good that day. But you got to be careful with those scrimmages against each other. And that's one of my pet peeves, Tony, till this day. George has heard me harp on this forever. Why in the world college football is the only sport that doesn't have a scrimmage against somebody else before they play?
Doesn't make any sense.
I've never understood that. So that's why you've got to be careful in these scrimmages that you don't create a confidence piece for somebody getting ready to go into the season, that one side of the ball kill the other side. And man, it's hard to come back from that. And then all of a sudden you got to play somebody.
And I think that's why they did what they did with the scrimmage. Now, fans don't like me saying what I'm saying, which is that, look, I mean, as you guys were in that room, that's a really good look-see into what I'm talking about. Because invariably a coordinator, a smart coordinator like you will say, hey, we don't, if I'm on defense, okay, and I'm Tim Banks, or I'm Willie Martinez, Tennessee secondary coach, I'm saying to Josh Heupel, please, okay, we're going to go 1v1s. Please don't throw the long ball on us. I mean, I know we can do that. I know we can. I know you guys can hit that. I know you can score 70, whatever pick your score. And so what Tennessee did, we were talking last week about the importance of finishing drives. And what they chose to focus on were things that will lead to them finishing drives, getting a tough couple of yards inside and sticking to that and working the running game. And then conversely, working their inside wide receivers or, their guys in the slot, and who are a couple of inexperienced guys in terms of being slot type players and really not typical slot receivers. These are wideouts that can't get off of press coverage, which is why they're inside. So, they just worked on what they needed to work on. And at the end of the day, I think it was very productive because I think they walked out of that defensively. Those kids got a little bit of confidence, whether it's real or not, who cares? They got to put up some good numbers against a prolific defense and feel good about themselves for a day. And then offensively, I think they got done talking to them. I think they got done what they wanted to get done.
Well, and what they needed to get done was consistency of long drives, in which they didn't have last year. They had quarters. We talked about it last week, Tony. They had quarters where they just did nothing. So when you say that, it makes a little sense that it also is something they needed to work on offensively a little bit, is consistently a 3, 4, 5, 6, keep the ball and take it down the field, because which is better for your team, a quick score or a 20-play score? And no doubt about it, the 20-play score is the best way to score, because you've not only wore the other side down, you're also giving your defense a rest, and you got the same number of points if you'd have got your points in one play. So I'm not sure that wasn't a smart thing that they did. And I'll bet you, Tony, they come back in this last scrimmage and they don't go ones-on-ones much at all.
I would bet you that's the case, yeah. You would think, to your point, you will want both sides to have their to feel like they've put their best foot forward in that final scrimmage, which would lend itself to not doing that, which is an excellent point on your part.
Now, the other thing I saw, Tony and George, when you need to pop in to do so, I thought I saw depth more. And to me, the style they play, that is the key. For sure defense, but I think both sides. And I'm seeing more players that can play on Saturday from what I read about the scrimmage. And the depth on defense look there, but I'm seeing offensive depth. And I always say, if you got 8 offensive linemen, if you got an extra guard, an extra center, and an extra tackle, you're okay. You've got to have depth at wide receiver, and you've got to have 3 running backs, and you've got to have 2 quarterbacks. And I saw, Milton played, they bragged on him quite a bit in this scrimmage, going, I guess, with the 2s against the 2s. And that's a good sign for Tennessee if he truly is getting better.
And that's the $1 million question, because again, like with Milton, and I hate to be this person, but I'm skeptical of guys that lose jobs at 2 different places. When you're a quarterback and it's kind of like that kid at LSU that just left there. When you lose a job 3 or 4 times, or lose a competition 3 or 4 times under a couple of different administrations, at some point that's on you. Tennessee is really trying to keep, and I give that Milton guy a lot of credit, because, sometimes the looks of things can be deceiving. You would kind of look at that guy and you would think about him leaving Michigan, and you would think he's going to come down to Tennessee and demand to be the starter. And he took that demotion last year about as good as you possibly can in this era for a quarterback. It did not, from him being a team player, the way he encouraged all his teammates, you'd see him on the sidelines in a game. Not the bad checked out body language. He was happy for his teammates. I say all that to say, if they put him in a football game as a starter because something happens with Hendon Hooker and he has to start a game and win a game, I'm here to tell you, I don't trust that guy. But I'm glad they say great things about him in practice. I think that's wonderful.
Well, I think they're trying to get his confidence up.
Sure.
Personally.
Yeah.
Is what they're trying to do. They probably set some things up where it wasn't real hard for him, and give him some, just what you and I just talked about the defense. And I'm not sure they're not doing the same thing with Milton. And just if he can just be a backup, he don't have to go win the games. If they'll structure it to where he just gets it to certain people, but he struggled with that. This style of offense, I just don't think fits him, Tony. And I'll offend George. You can come in after this, but get you to comment, Tony. He's not a quick twitch guy. This style of offense takes a quick twitch quarterback. And thought process and release of the football and quick feet. You've got to have all three of those pieces. And I don't know that he has any of the three pieces.
And the thing about this offense is that I think it's a misconception with a lot of people. You don't need a tremendous arm to play in that offense, but you need to be quick. You need to be decisive. It needs to be on time. And when you throw the long ball, which is a great case in point, last year we go back to the Pittsburgh game. If you have competent quarterback play in that game, he missed several wide open. I'm talking in a Division I football game, you've got to hit those passes. When a receiver gets behind somebody 10, 15 yards, and there's nobody there, and there's no safety, there's no help, that's non-negotiable. And they left, and I'm not exaggerating here, he easily left 4 or 5 of those on the field last year, which I think is why they decided to admit the mistake, go with Hooker, and you made a great point last week, feed him a little bit each week and get him up to where they need him to be. And, the importance of my looking at Josh Heupel, their recruiting is going really well on the defensive end. He continues to impress me. And the guy's ability to manage people and to, a lot of coaches don't admit mistakes. And Heupel did it a couple times last year on a couple of fronts. And head coaches don't like to admit, they just don't like to choose or admit they've chosen the wrong horse on one of those deals. And good for him for not doing that.
No, and you talking about long ball, Tony, in today's football, everything is so much quicker than it used to be. I compare it to arena ball. A deep ball now doesn't travel over 45 yards. It's not that old play action pass, drop back another 5 steps and throw it as far as you can throw it. That's not the deep ball in college football today. And it's becoming not the deep ball in pro football today. If a ball lands 45 yards, that's about as far as it goes when you're throwing these skinny posts and these takeoffs, and that's really the deep balls, is those 2 type routes. And you just, as long as you've got timing and put it in the right spot, that's all you need.
Yeah, and it's a great point. And timing is everything. And again, that goes back to confidence. And that goes back to that offense calls for somebody that has a feel. You've got to feel the position if you're going to play for a Josh Heupel. And that's why, I think it's real interesting. Tennessee has a kid on their bench who's got a real chance to be a nice player, a freshman here they really like, and a kid out of Indianapolis. And it would not surprise me if he gets an opportunity. They have a much ballyhooed freshman coming in next year. I'll tell you, that will be an interesting camp battle next year. And Milton probably is going to stick around as well. So, because the thing about this offense is, and I think we share the same opinion, you don't have to be lights out great to excel in that offense, but you do have to have certain characteristics you were talking about.
You got to have the quickness pieces, and you got to be patient to get it to the right people. I mean, the people you're getting it to are going to make the plays.
Mm-hmm.
The quarterback's just got to get it to them, and that's the way I think he's built this offense. George, what you got?
Well, Tony, first of all, I think this is the best segment I have ever done. I think you saw some of my real talent in this interview with you. No, seriously, couple of things. This is where the dumb questions come from. What are they paying Ball State?
I don't know. That would be a great question for Coach, because
I'm going to ask him.
Yeah, well, you ought to ask him, because it varies. I do think, though, that Tennessee's pretty generous with non-league opponents from that standpoint, but it varies by team, I believe.
Tell me this before we go. Give me a couple of names of some people that have pleasantly surprised you that maybe in July wouldn't have been on anybody's radar.
That's a really good question. And I would have to think that inside for Tennessee in their slot, they've gotten some pretty good play so far. There are a couple guys vying there. The thing about Heupel's offense that's really interesting is a guy to look for is a mid-state guy. Merrill is a kid that I think is going to end up in their rotation. And I don't think a lot of people thought that, but he is a steady as you go type of player for them. And that's what they're looking for. I mean, to Watson's point, they don't need guys to burn and run around. They need guys to run intricate, not simple routes, but routes that are on time, in the right spot, and they like him a lot. So that's a guy that I think you're going to see. Another kid, there's a freshman running back who we talked about last week, who I think is going to have an impact. There were a couple of really good freshman running backs that are going to vie for time. The interesting thing about their offense is that despite having all these guys running around, they really only use 3 wide receivers. They don't substitute much at all. So if you're not on the field when the series begins, you're not on the field. And that's different than what you see with a lot of teams. The other side of it is that with the running game, a couple guys will play, maybe a third, and right now there's 4 or so. And then with Lynn J. Dixon, the transfer, that'll add another to the mix. But the number of skill guys that actually get on the field and get to contribute is not great. Tennessee still has an issue with the blindside tackle, and that's something that's going to drag into the season, unfortunately for them. So that's the one bugaboo. And hey, that's college football. Everybody but Alabama has issues, at this time of the year.
You got that right. Spend a minute and tell people a little bit about how they can hear you and some of the content that you bring to the table.
Yeah, thanks. So I do a blog every day. Like today, we do a thing called Hoops Tuesday. We had some Tennessee basketball recruiting stuff in there, and we kind of were talking about a kid that ended up committing today to Tennessee. In fact, it's been really good in terms of what's going on recruiting wise here in both the major sports. Basketball team and the football team has just had a great run with secondary players. Offensively, Tennessee in recruiting is lagging behind their defense. I mean, honk if you had that on your bingo card, because nobody did. But that's the way it's played out so far. My website is called tclub.team. Again, the letter T with club after it, .team. We put a blog up there every day. My show is there every day. And then after games, soon as any Tennessee football or basketball game ends, I'm right on the air there mixing it up with fans.
Beautiful. I love it. And I love the fact you're mixing it up with Watson. Thank you so much
Oh, thank you. It's an honor
for taking the time to come on.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tony.